Hello and welcome. We're about to jump into a really important topic, integrating ISO 37000-2021 into management systems. This lesson is produced by EasyPathUni in coordination with Yazan Ibrahim. Now, our whole goal here is to make this super practical and clear, kind of like what you'd find on platforms like Coursera or Udemy. We'll be using real-world examples so you can see exactly how these concepts apply in your day-to-day work. So let's kick things off with a big picture question. I want you to think about this for a second. How do you really view governance in your organization? I mean, is it just a burden, another compliance chore you have to get through? Or could it actually be a strategic asset, something that gives you a real competitive edge? Okay, so in this explainer, we're going to lay out the complete blueprint to turn governance into that strategic asset. First up, we'll talk about making that crucial shift in mindset from compliance to value. Then we're going to walk through a really practical 6-step roadmap. After that, we'll get real about the common hurdles you're likely to face and how to get over them. And we'll wrap it all up by talking about how to build a governance culture that actually sticks. All right, let's dive right in. The very first piece of the puzzle is all about a strategic shift. It's about completely reframing how we look at governance. See, the big idea here is that integrating ISO 37000 isn't just about checking off a compliance box. No, it's a genuine strategic move that can totally transform your organization. And this right here perfectly captures that shift. On one side, you've got that old school compliance mindset. You know the one. It's reactive, it sees governance as a cost center, it's all about taking boxes. We want to move away from that. Our goal is to land firmly on the other side, the value creation mindset. This is where governance becomes a proactive, strategic asset that builds real resilience. And let me tell you, that shift from just preventing problems to actively creating value, well, that's a total game changer. So what does that value actually look like? Well, here's where it gets really powerful. Take a look at these benefits. They aren't just a random list. They're all interconnected. Think about it for a second. When you enhance your operational efficiency, what happens? You free up resources. When you build stakeholder trust, you strengthen your brand. It all feeds into itself, creating this amazing ripple effect that leads to smarter decisions and makes you way more agile. It strengthens the whole organization from the inside out. Okay, so that all sounds great, right? But the big question is, how do we actually do it? Well, it's not magic, it's a roadmap. Let's get into the nitty-gritty and look at the blueprint for making this happen. And here it is. This is your 6-step integration blueprint. Think of this as your path from where you are today all the way to a state of dynamic, continuous improvement. And having a structured approach like this is so important. It takes what can feel like a massive, kind of overwhelming goal and breaks it down into clear, manageable chunks. So let's walk through each of these steps. Okay, step 1, diagnostic and discovery. You know, you can't really plan a journey without knowing your starting point, right? It's the same thing here. This first step is all about taking a deep, honest look in the mirror. You're conducting a gap analysis to understand exactly where your governance stands today. And this is absolutely critical, because if you skip this, you're basically just guessing. And guessing is a surefire way to waste a ton of time and energy. And let's be clear, this isn't just a paper-pushing exercise. It's not about just reading policies. You've got to get out there and talk to people, stakeholders at every single level, from the C-suite right down to the front lines. That's how you uncover what's really happening, the governance in action. Then you can map what you've learned against the ISO 37000 standard, identify the gaps, and this is the key part, prioritize them based on risk and impact. You've got to know where to start. All right, now that you know your starting point, step 2 is about blueprinting the future. You've done the diagnosis, now it's time to write the prescription. This is where you develop that structured, phased integration roadmap. A solid plan is what keeps everyone aligned and ensures all your hard work is actually focused on what matters most. And the key here is to be super practical. We're not talking about a vague wish list. We're talking about a concrete action plan. That means smart objectives, clear owners who are held accountable, and realistic timelines. And please, do not forget about change management. I mean, you could have the most brilliant plan in the world, but if nobody buys into it, it's just a piece of paper. You have to bring your people along for the ride. Okay, plan's in place. Now it's time for step 3, structural alignment. This is where the rubber meets the road. You're taking your plan and starting to bake it into the very structure of your organization, harmonizing your policies, your frameworks, and your operating models. This is where it starts getting real. And a huge part of this is creating what's called an integrated management system, or IMS. What does that mean? Well, instead of having separate siloed systems for things like quality, IT security, and governance, you find the common ground. You integrate things like document control, risk assessment, and internal audits. Why? Because it creates a single, unified system that's way more efficient, and let's be honest, it really helps cut down on that awful audit fatigue we all know and love. So we've got the plan and the structure. We're done, right? Not even close, because policies and frameworks are just one part of the equation. A policy that just sits on a shelf is totally useless. Real, true integration happens when good governance becomes second nature, when it's embedded in your company's DNA. And that brings us to step 4, cultural immersion. This is how you make governance an instinctive behavior. It's about more than just a one-off training session. We're talking about tailored training for different teams, actually integrating ethical conduct into performance reviews. And this one is non-negotiable: leadership by example. When everyone sees the leaders at the top walking the talk, day in and day out, that's when the culture really starts to shift. Now let's talk about a major force multiplier in all of this: technology. Step 5 is technological empowerment. Modern GRC, that's governance, risk, and compliance, platforms can act like the central nervous system for your entire governance framework. Think of it as a single source of truth that ties everything together. With the right technology, you can centralize all your data and documents. You can automate those routine compliance tasks that nobody likes doing, and you can use analytics to get actual data-driven insights. This is what empowers you to move from that reactive mode, always putting out fires, to a proactive and even predictive stance. You start seeing problems before they even happen. And that brings us to the final step, step 6, dynamic stewardship. And I really want to stress this point. Integration is not a one-and-done project. You don't just finish and get a certificate. It's an ongoing journey. Your organization is constantly changing. The world is constantly changing. So your governance framework has to be a living, breathing thing that adapts along with you. So how do you do that? You establish clear KPIs and metrics so you know what good looks like. You conduct regular audits and management reviews. You capture those lessons learned, both the good and the bad, so you can improve. This is how you build a system that doesn't just work today, but stays strong and effective for years to come. Okay, so we've walked through the perfect plan, but we all know the real world isn't perfect. Any major initiative like this is going to run into some hurdles. That's totally okay and completely normal. The secret isn't trying to avoid challenges. It's about seeing them coming so you can navigate right around them. And here are some of the usual suspects. Things like resistance to change, not having enough resources, organizational silos. Sound familiar? The great news is that for every one of these common challenges, there's a proactive solution. Let's take resistance to change. That's a big one. It usually comes from a place of not understanding the why. The solution? You over-communicate the vision, you involve people directly, you find your champions who can spread the message. By planning for these things, you keep the momentum going. So beyond the roadmap and the tech and the policies, what's the real end game here? The ultimate goal is to build a true culture of governance, a culture where doing the right thing isn't something people have to think about. It's just how we do things around here. And these right here, these are the pillars that hold that culture up. You need visible, unwavering executive sponsorship. And I mean actions, not just words. You need to foster cross-functional collaboration, breaking down those silos. And you need clear, transparent communication that's always focused on value, not just compliance. When you get these things right, governance stops feeling like a mandate from on high and starts feeling like a shared commitment to excellence. So if there's one thing you take away from all this, let it be this. Integrated governance is not a technical task you check off a list. It is a dynamic, living framework. It's the engine that's going to drive your organization's resilience, its ethical conduct, and its long-term sustainable success. So we've laid out the roadmap, we've talked through the philosophy. You now have the foundation for excellence. The only question left is the one for you. How are you going to take these ideas and transform governance from an obligation into your organization's greatest advantage?